I never thought I'd find myself at a crossroads in my life. Not like this. My name is Jake, and I've spent the better part of the last decade designing wheelchair-accessible trails in our local national park. It's noble work, or so I thought, helping people navigate the great outdoors, breaking down barriers, creating pathways that everyone can enjoy. This is what I poured my heart into. But as it turns out, the real emotional navigation I'd need to undertake was going to be far more personal. My wife Sarah was always the life of the party. Charming, witty, and beautiful, she had this way of turning heads wherever we went. But beneath that surface, I started to notice cracks in our seemingly perfect marriage. It began with the little things, the late nights at work, the texts she'd quickly hide when I walked into the room, and the way she'd become increasingly dismissive of my feelings. I attributed it all to stress, the kind of stuff that happens in long-term relationships, right? But deep down, I felt that gnawing unease that something wasn't right. One Friday evening, I had just come back from a long day in the park, exhausted, but fulfilled. I was eager to tell Sarah about my latest project, accessible trails that wound through the most breathtaking parts of the park, allowing everyone to experience nature more fully. I walked into our living room, but Sarah wasn't there. Instead, I found her phone lying face up on the coffee table, and for reasons I still can't quite explain, I picked it up. Curiosity, maybe. Distrust, absolutely. As I scanned her phone, my heart raced. It was filled with messages, messages that were all too flirty and intimate. I stumbled upon a chat with a guy named Mark, and the words I read made my stomach churn. They were meeting for coffee during lunch breaks. My mind went into overdrive, and I could feel the walls closing in on me as I read the words that confirmed my worst fears. Can't wait to see you again tonight. My heart sank. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't just losing my wife. I was losing the ideal of what I thought our life was. The confrontation was inevitable. I couldn't hold myself back any longer. When Sarah came home, I felt the heat rising in my chest, my heart pounding like a drum. It was surreal, like I was floating above my body as I faced her. I threw her phone on the table and asked, "What's this about you and Mark?" Her reaction was a mixture of shock and indignation. "What are you talking about, Jake?" She spat, rolling her eyes. The audacity. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to fabricate the best lie. "You're being ridiculous. It's just workplace banter." I pressed on, refusing to back down. "He's not just a coworker, Sarah. You're meeting him. This isn't just friendly chit-chat." The anger in my voice surprised even me, but I deserved answers. She finally cracked, albeit feebly. "Okay, fine, we went out for coffee, but it was nothing. You know how stressful things have been lately. I just needed an escape." The excuses rolled off her tongue like a practice performance. She was convincing in a way that made me feel sick. For a moment, I almost believed her. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about coffee. It was about betrayal, and it cut deeper than any emotional wound I had ever felt. I demanded to know how long this had been going on. Was it weeks? Months? Her evasive answers only fueled my anger. I felt like a fool, standing there, heartbroken and betrayed, while she spun her lies, her eyes darting around the room like they were searching for an exit. And that's when it hit me. I was no longer in love with the woman who stood before me. This wasn't the Sarah I had married. The woman I once cherished had transformed into a stranger. My heart was shattered, and I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to fall. I didn't know what to do next. Should I fight for this marriage or let it go? The confusion was palpable, and I could feel the weight of it bearing down on me. The days that followed the confrontation were a blur. I was in a state of emotional limbo, teetering on the edge of anger, sadness, and disbelief. I went to work, but my focus was shattered. Designing accessible trails felt meaningless when my entire life was crumbling behind me. I could hear the sounds of nature around me, the rustling leaves, the distant calls of birds, but all I felt was this deafening silence of betrayal echoing in my mind. Sarah tried to act as if nothing had happened. She would cook dinner, ask how my day was, but I could see right through her facade. The guilt was written all over her face, even if she tried to mask it with a smile. I felt like I was living with a ghost, someone who had taken over my wife's body, but the warmth and love were gone. Every attempt at conversation felt like I was speaking to a wall. It was painfully clear that our marriage was hanging by a thread, but I wasn't ready to snap it just yet. One evening, after a particularly rough day, I found myself sitting on the back porch, staring at the stars. I needed to think, to process everything. The weight of it all was suffocating, and I felt so alone. My phone buzzed beside me, breaking the silence. It was a message from Mark. I could hardly believe it. My heart raced again, this time with rage. I read the message aloud to myself. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, just you and me." It stung. Like a slap in the face. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let this go unanswered. I needed to confront this Mark guy, to see the face of the man who had so brazenly intruded on my life. The plan formed in my mind like a dark cloud. I'd trail them, find out what they were doing, and then confront them both. It was not a proud thought, but I felt powerless, like I had no other choice. The next day, I took a long lunch break under the pretense of working on a new project. I parked outside a local cafe, the very place where they had their secret rendezvous. My heart was pounding as I waited, scanning the crowd, searching for them. Each passing moment felt like an eternity, and every unfamiliar face made my heart leap with hope and despair. Finally, I saw her. Sarah walked into the cafe, and my stomach dropped. She looked carefree, laughing at something Mark must have said. I felt a surge of anger and pain wash over me as I watched them. They sat at a table in the corner, their bodies leaning in close together. My heart raced as I fumbled with my phone, trying to capture the moment. This was proof, irrefutable evidence of her betrayal. I recorded them for what felt like hours, my hands trembling as I watched the two of them share a laugh. But it wasn't just the laughter, it was the way she looked at him. There was a spark in her eyes that I hadn't seen in years. It felt like I was watching a scene from a movie, a horror flick where the protagonist slowly realizes they've been betrayed by someone they loved. After what felt like an eternity, I decided enough was enough. I couldn't just sit idly by and let this go on. I approached their table, my heart pounding in my chest. Sarah looked up at me, her smile fading as she realized I had caught her red-handed. Mark, on the other hand, looked bewildered, like he had just been slapped with the reality of the situation. "Jake, what are you doing here?" Sarah stammered, her voice shaky. It was a pathetic attempt to play innocent, and I wasn't having any of it. "Really, Sarah? Meeting your work friend for coffee again? What's the excuse?" This time, I shot back, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Mark looked uncomfortable, shifting his gaze from Sarah to me and back again like a deer caught in headlights. "Jake, let's talk about this," she said, trying to defuse the situation. But I wasn't interested in talking. Not anymore. I needed to make a point to show her that I wasn't going to stand by while she toyed with my heart. "I think it's time you both realize the mess you've made," I said, cutting her off. "What's going on is not just a casual coffee chat, and you both know it. You think this is fair." Sarah's face turned pale, and for a moment I saw the facade crack. But instead of shame or guilt, she launched into a tirade of excuses. "You don't understand. We've been growing apart. I needed someone to talk to, and Mark was there for me." Her words felt like daggers, each one sharp and cutting. "You think I haven't been there for you? I've dedicated my life to being your partner." I was furious, and the betrayal felt like a weight on my chest. I turned to Mark and said, "You should have known better than to get involved with someone who's married. You're no better than her." Mark opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. "No, don't even try. You think she's worth it. You think this is going to end well." The expression on Sarah's face shifted from anger to desperation. She reached out for my arm, but I stepped back, not wanting to feel her touch that felt so foreign now. "You need to make a choice, Sarah. You either want to work on this marriage, or you can keep playing house with Mark, but make no mistake, I'm not waiting around for you to figure it out." I turned and walked away, leaving their shocked faces behind. My heart pounded in my chest, a mixture of anger and relief coursing through me. I had made my stand, but the reality of what lay ahead was still unclear. Would she fight for our marriage, or was this the end? After the confrontation, the atmosphere at home shifted drastically. It became a battlefield of silent treatment and thinly veiled tension. I felt like I was sharing my life with a stranger, one whose laughter had turned to whispers behind closed doors. Sarah didn't know how to act around me. One minute she would be cold and dismissive, The next she'd try to coax me into talking, only for her attempts to fall flat. It was exhausting. I spent hours at work, throwing myself into my projects, sketching out new designs for the accessible trails. But every time I stepped outside, looking at the beauty of nature around me, I was reminded of what I was losing. The tranquility of the trees and the gentle rustle of leaves felt bittersweet. The trails I had envisioned were meant to be a symbol of connection and openness, but here I was, feeling utterly closed off. In the evenings, Sarah would often text Mark, and those moments felt like daggers. I couldn't bring myself to confront her about it again. I was spent. My heart and mind were on a roller coaster ride of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal, and an overwhelming sense of loss. I found myself questioning everything: our life together, our shared dreams, and the future I thought we had. One particular night, while flipping through old photo albums, I came across pictures of our wedding. We looked so happy, so full of hope. I felt a pang of nostalgia mixed with bitterness. How did it all unravel so quickly? I couldn't recognize the couple in those photos anymore. I slammed the album shut, frustration boiling over. It was infuriating to think that the memories of our happiest times were now tainted by the reality of her betrayal. Weeks passed in this agonizing limbo. I tried to give Sarah space, but it was hard when the air was thick with unspoken words. One night as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I decided I needed to confront her again. I couldn't let the silence fester any longer. It was eating away at me. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady but weary as I turned to face her in the dim light. She looked up from her phone, surprised. "We need to talk." "About what?" she replied, an edge of defensiveness creeping into her tone. "This isn't working. We can't keep pretending everything is okay," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You're still seeing him, aren't you?" Her silence spoke volumes. I could see the guilt wash over her face, her eyes flickering away from mine. "Jake, please, it's not what you think." "Not what I think," I interrupted, my voice rising. "I saw you with him, Sarah. You think I'm just going to forget that? I deserve the truth." I was confused. I didn't mean for it to go this far. She finally blurted out, her voice rising in desperation. "We were having problems and Mark was there. I thought it was just a distraction. I didn't want to hurt you." The irony hit hard. She didn't want to hurt me. It felt laughable. "You're hurting me every single day by dragging this out, Sarah," I snapped back. "You're living a double life, and the worst part is you're still trying to play the victim. Do you even understand the mess you've created?" I know, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm sorry," she pleaded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to lose you." "Then why did you do it?" I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "You could have come to me, talked to me about our issues, but instead you chose to betray me. You chose to be with someone else." She didn't respond for a moment, tears streaming down her face. The sight of her crying should have stirred some sympathy in me, but all I felt was anger. "What do you want from me?" she finally asked, her voice breaking. "Do you want me to just give up on us, to cut ties with Mark and pretend like nothing happened? I want you to realize what you've done." I shouted, feeling the weight of my emotions spilling over. "I want you to understand that this isn't just about you. This is about us, our marriage." In that moment, everything felt so raw and real. I could see the fear in her eyes, and beneath her defenses, the love we once shared flickered. But could I trust that love anymore? I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "Sarah, I need time to think. I don't know if I can forgive you right now. I don't even know if I want to." Her face fell, and the silence that followed was deafening. I turned away, feeling the weight of my decision pressing down on me. I needed to process everything, to figure out if this marriage could be salvaged or if it was time to move on. The next few days were filled with tension. I kept my distance, trying to gain some clarity. I found myself questioning every moment we had shared, every promise we had made. Could I rebuild what had crumbled, or was it time to forge a new path? The questions swirled in my mind, and with each passing day, I felt the emotional toll intensifying. I decided to reach out to a close friend, Mike, someone who had always been there for me through thick and thin. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could give me an outside perspective. When we met up for coffee, I poured out my heart, explaining everything that had happened. He listened intently, nodding along as I recounted the pain of betrayal and the confusion of my feelings. "You deserve better than this, man," Mike said, his voice steady. "You've been working so hard to make your life better and she's just tossed it aside. You need to figure out if she's worth fighting for." His words resonated with me. I had poured my soul into our marriage, but was it even worth saving? I had to confront the reality that I didn't want to be with someone who didn't value me. I realized I needed to make a decision, whether to fight for our relationship or to walk away for my own peace of mind. That night, as I lay in bed, I made a choice. I deserved happiness, and I wasn't going to allow Sarah's betrayal to define me. The next day, I would lay it all on the line, and whatever happened, I would finally take control of my narrative. I had to choose the path that honored my journey, no matter how painful it might be. The following day, I woke up with a sense of determination I hadn't felt in weeks. I was ready to reclaim my life and my peace of mind. The sun spilled through the window, illuminating the mess we had created, and I felt a flicker of hope that maybe I could start to move forward, whether that meant without Sarah or working toward rebuilding our marriage. I knew I had to lay everything on the table, no more hiding from the truth. I found Sarah in the kitchen, sipping her coffee and scrolling through her phone. The sight of her sent a rush of conflicting emotions through me, anger, sadness, but also a sense of nostalgia. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the resolve I had felt earlier. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to apprehension. "Okay, about what?" There was a nervous edge in her voice, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. "About us. About what you've done," I said, not beating around the bush this time. "I'm not interested in half measures anymore. We need to have an honest conversation about where we stand." "Jake, I know I messed up," she started, her face flushing with embarrassment. Stop," I interrupted, raising my hand to signal her to pause. "I don't want to hear the same excuses or apologies. I need to know how you really feel. Do you want to be with me? Do you want to work on this marriage?" She hesitated, her expression shifting as if she was weighing her response. I don't know." The honesty in her words cut through me like a knife. "I don't know if I can just pretend it didn't happen." "Then what do you suggest?" I asked, feeling frustration bubbling up again. "Because right now it feels like you're juggling two lives and I can't stand being in the shadows. You can't have both, so tell me, what's it going to be?" Her eyes filled with tears as she looked down, grappling with her feelings. "I care about you, Jake. I really do, but I got lost along the way. Mark was an escape. I thought maybe I could find myself again through him, but I see now that it just made everything worse." "An escape?" I echoed, my heart racing. "You think running away from our problems is the solution? I've been trying to make our life better, to build something meaningful, and you threw it all away for a fling." "I know it was stupid. I was foolish," she cried, her voice breaking. "I didn't think it would go this far. But I don't want to lose you, Jake. You're my husband and I love you. I just got caught up in something I didn't know how to handle and it spiraled out of control." I felt my resolve wavering as I listened to her, but I reminded myself of the pain she had caused. "Love isn't just a word, Sarah. It's an action. It's showing up, being there for each other. You've betrayed that trust. How can I believe you now?" "I'll do anything to prove it to you," she pleaded, desperation lacing her voice. "Just give me a chance. I can change. I will change. I'll cut ties with Mark and we can go to counseling. We can work this out together." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their implications. The thought of going to counseling sounded appealing. Maybe it could help mend the rift that had formed between us. But the trust would take time to rebuild. I couldn't ignore the reality of what had happened and how profoundly it had affected me. "I need to think about it," I said finally, my voice softer but still firm. "You need to show me that you're serious about this. I can't just forget what you did. You have to understand that it's going to take time for me to heal, if I even want to." "Please, Jake, I don't want to lose you," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Seeing her like this stirred something in me. The love I once felt for her was still there, buried beneath layers of hurt and betrayal. "I don't want to lose you either," I admitted, my voice almost a whisper. "But I can't promise anything. I can't just jump back into everything like nothing happened. We need boundaries and I need space to think." She nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I'll give you space. Just know that I'm committed to making this right. I'll cut Mark out of my life and I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." With that, I felt a flicker of hope, a small, fragile ember in the midst of turmoil. Maybe there was a chance for us. Maybe we could work through the mess together, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. It would require hard work and honesty, and I would need to take my time to heal. As I walked away, I felt the weight of the moment settling in. I was at a crossroads, and the path I chose would determine the future of our marriage. It was terrifying, but I was ready to take that first step forward, no matter how daunting it seemed. We had a long road ahead of us, filled with challenges and difficult conversations. But I had to believe that it could lead us to a new chapter, one where we could rebuild what had been broken together. Over the next few weeks, Sarah did everything she promised. She cut off all communication with Mark, and I could see the effort she was putting into rebuilding our relationship. Yet, every time she reached out to me, I felt the sting of doubt creep in. It was hard to trust again, even when she seemed genuine. We began attending couples therapy, and those sessions were intense. We faced a lot of uncomfortable truths, and I often found myself wrestling with the shadows of what had happened. Though I appreciated her efforts, I still felt a lingering sadness every time we talked about our past. It was a constant reminder of the betrayal, and it took everything in me to remain open and vulnerable. In therapy, we discussed the importance of communication, something we had both neglected. I shared my feelings of hurt and anger while she expressed her fears of losing me. Slowly but surely, we started to peel back the layers of our marriage, trying to understand where we had gone wrong. It was during one of those sessions that I realized something crucial. I wasn't just angry at Sarah. I was also angry at myself for allowing her infidelity to shatter my sense of self-worth. I had poured so much of my identity into our marriage that I had neglected my own needs and desires. The journey wasn't just about repairing our relationship. It was also about rediscovering who I was outside of being her husband. With each passing week, I began to feel a sense of healing take root. I embraced my work with renewed passion, channeling my feelings into designing innovative trails that would reflect not only accessibility, but also resilience. The trails became a metaphor for my own journey, each twist and turn representing the emotional navigation I was undergoing. I realized that every step I took on this path was a testament to the strength I had yet to recognize in myself. I was learning to build boundaries, communicate my needs, and prioritize my well-being. As we continued in therapy, I could see Sarah changing too. She was actively listening, showing empathy, and taking responsibility for her actions. I felt a small flicker of hope that maybe we could move past this together, but I knew it wouldn't be an easy road. The journey to recovery was ongoing. The scars of betrayal would always linger, but I was beginning to understand that healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about learning, growing, and finding strength in vulnerability. Together, we were building a new foundation, a path that honored not only our shared journey but the individual journeys we each needed to take. I knew the road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to face it. No matter what happened, I was committed to navigating this terrain with intention, honesty, and dignity. The weeks turned into months, and the incremental changes in our relationship began to feel more like progress than just a temporary patch. Our therapy sessions became a staple in our weekly routine, a safe space where we could both express our thoughts and feelings without judgment. It was a relief to finally talk openly about the things that had been buried for so long. Sarah put in the effort, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. She was working hard to earn back my trust, and I was slowly but surely learning to let her in again. However, each day was a balancing act between cautiously moving forward and hovering over the painful memories that lingered like a specter in our home. One evening, we decided to take a walk along the trails I had been designing. It was a warm, breezy night, and the park was filled with the sounds of crickets and rustling leaves. As we walked, I felt a mix of nostalgia and hope. The trails were a representation of our journey, not just the physical paths I was creating, but the emotional ones we were navigating together. "Jake, can we talk?" Sarah asked as we strolled. She looked genuinely nervous, and I could see her fidgeting with her hands. "Of course," I replied. Bracing myself, I could sense that she wanted to dive into something deeper, and I was ready to listen. I've been thinking a lot about our past, about everything that happened, she began, glancing down at the ground. I want you to know how truly sorry I am for what I did. I can't change the past, but I'm committed to making this work. You mean so much to me. My heart softened a bit, but I felt a wave of apprehension wash over me. I appreciate that, Sarah. But we both know it's going to take more than just words. Trust is built over time, and I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate those feelings. I understand, she said, nodding earnestly. I'm willing to be patient. I want to show you that I'm here for you, that we can rebuild what we've lost. We continued walking, and I noticed how the moonlight illuminated the path ahead. The trails were just beginning to take shape, just like our relationship. I felt a sense of hope mingled with the fear of what still lay ahead. Would we truly make it? I wanted to believe in us again, but I knew I had to tread carefully. In the days that followed, we both continued to work on our individual healing. I started journaling my feelings, pouring out my thoughts about the affair, my anger, my sadness, and my hopes for the future. It became therapeutic, a release that allowed me to articulate the turmoil that had been brewing inside me. I also found solace in my work, embracing the idea that the trails I was designing could symbolize resilience, not just for those who would walk them, but for myself as well. Then, one afternoon, I had a moment of clarity. While I was sketching the layout of a new trail, it hit me. I had been so focused on the past that I hadn't taken the time to envision what I wanted our future to look like. I wanted to create a space where healing could take place, not just for others but for us as a couple. I needed to shift my perspective and think about the pathways we could forge together, rather than the ones that had already been walked. That evening, I sat Sarah down, my heart racing with anticipation. I've been thinking, I began, trying to find the right words. I want us to start anew, not just go back to how things were, but to create something better together. Her eyes lit up, and I could see how much my words meant to her. What do you have in mind? She asked, leaning in closer. I think we should set some goals together, I said. Let's work on building our new future, not just in therapy but in our daily lives. We can create a vision board, something that represents what we want for our future and how we can support each other in achieving it. I love that idea, she exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. We can include everything we've dreamed about: travel, family, our careers, everything. As we brainstormed ideas for the vision board, I felt excitement bubbling inside me. It was refreshing to think beyond the pain and focus on a future we could create together. It wouldn't erase the past, but it could serve as a reminder of our commitment to healing and growth. The next weekend, we gathered supplies: a huge poster board, magazines, scissors, and glue. We spent hours flipping through pages, cutting out images and phrases that resonated with us. As we worked side by side, I felt a renewed connection with Sarah. We laughed and talked about our dreams, recalling the things that had initially drawn us together. I want to travel to the Grand Canyon, Sarah said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Can you imagine hiking those trails together, just you and me, away from everything? That sounds amazing, I replied, picturing the breathtaking views. And we can make it accessible for others too, just like the trails we're designing now. As the board began to take shape, I realized how much I had missed this side of our relationship, collaborating and dreaming together. For the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could forge a new path, one filled with love, communication, and trust. When we finally stood back to admire our creation, I couldn't help but feel proud. The vision board was a vivid representation of our dreams, a reminder that while we had faced challenges, we were committed to envisioning a future together. It was a tangible marker of our growth, both as individuals and as a couple. As the days turned into weeks, we began to implement our goals. We planned small trips, explored new hobbies together, and prioritized spending quality time with one another. The simple acts of joy started to fill the void that the betrayal had left behind. However, the journey wasn't without its challenges. There were moments when insecurities would flare up, and I'd find myself grappling with the shadows of the past. In those times, I leaned on what we had built together. I reminded myself of the vision board and the promises we had made to each other. I understood that healing wasn't linear. It came in waves, sometimes crashing unexpectedly. One evening, while we were cuddling on the couch after a long day, I glanced over at Sarah and felt a warmth in my chest. "You know, I'm really proud of us," I said, my voice sincere. "We've come a long way." "I feel the same way," she replied, her eyes shining with emotion. "I know it won't be easy, but I'm committed to making this work, Jake. You're worth it." In that moment, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Maybe we weren't completely healed yet, but we were on the right path. The open trails around the park mirrored the openness we had begun to cultivate in our relationship, the freedom to express ourselves, the willingness to communicate, and the commitment to navigate through the challenges together. As we settled into our routine, I began to see glimpses of the woman I fell in love with. There were still struggles, but there was also laughter, intimacy, and a renewed sense of partnership. We were both learning to be vulnerable, to express our feelings without fear of judgment. The journey ahead would continue to be filled with ups and downs, but I felt ready to face it. I was no longer just the husband trying to fix what was broken. I was also learning to honor my own journey. And with Sarah by my side, I felt hopeful that we could forge ahead, hand in hand, creating new pathways that would lead us to a brighter future together. As time went on, the emotional scars of Sarah's infidelity began to fade, but they never completely disappeared. Instead, they transformed into reminders of the resilience we both had cultivated. Through therapy, our shared goals, and the commitment to open communication, we learned not only to forgive each other, but also to acknowledge the lessons that came with the challenge we faced. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across our living room, I found myself reflecting on the journey we had taken. We had created so many new memories together: weekend getaways, spontaneous hikes, and even quiet evenings spent planning our future. I realized how far we had come and how much closer we felt now than we had in years. "Jake, can we sit down for a moment?" Sarah called from the kitchen, her voice carrying a hint of excitement. I walked over, curious about what was on her mind. She had a sparkle in her eyes that reminded me of our early days together. "Sure, what's up?" I asked, noticing the way she was nervously fidgeting with her hands. "I've been thinking," she began, her tone serious but hopeful, "about how much we've been through and how we've managed to come out stronger on the other side. I want to celebrate that." "What do you have in mind?" I asked, intrigued. "I thought we could have a little renewal night. You know, like a mini celebration of our commitment to each other. Maybe some dinner, candles, and just a chance to reestablish our promises to one another." I felt a warm rush of affection. "I love that idea. It sounds perfect." As the evening unfolded, Sarah set up the living room with candles and soft music playing in the background. The atmosphere felt intimate, and I could sense the love that had been rekindled between us. We shared a simple dinner, but it felt like a feast given the emotions and intentions behind it. After dinner, we sat together on the couch holding hands. "Jake, I want to take a moment to express how grateful I am for you," she said, her voice steady. "For your patience, your willingness to work through our issues, and for not giving up on us. You've taught me so much about love, forgiveness, and growth." I squeezed her hand, feeling a lump in my throat. "And you've taught me that it's okay to be vulnerable. I've learned that healing takes effort from both sides, and I appreciate every step you've taken to repair what was broken." We talked for hours, reminiscing about our highlights, the laughter, the challenges, and the shared goals on our vision board. It was cathartic, and I felt lighter as we shared our hopes, dreams, and reassurances for the future. We spoke about the trails I was designing and how they had been a metaphor for our journey together. "Just like those paths, we've had twists and turns, but they've led us to beautiful places," I said, my heart swelling with pride. "And I believe we can keep moving forward." With the evening winding down, I pulled Sarah closer and looked into her eyes. "I want to make a promise to you, right here and now. I promise to communicate openly, to be vulnerable, and to support you in every way I can. I want us to continue growing together, no matter what life throws our way." tears glistened in her eyes as she nodded emphatically. And I promised to always be honest, to prioritize our relationship, and to never take our love for granted again. I want to create a life together that honors both of our journeys. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of connection. We exchanged heartfelt vows, not just as a formality but as a commitment to our new beginning. It was a promise to nurture our love, to honor our vulnerabilities, and to never shy away from the hard conversations that might arise. As I wrapped my arms around her, I knew that while the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, we were equipped to face it together. We had built a solid foundation based on trust and open communication, and that was something no betrayal could ever erase. In the months that followed, life continued to unfold with both its challenges and joys. We found ourselves navigating the intricacies of our renewed relationship, learning to embrace the moments of vulnerability. There were still times when the past would creep in, but we faced those moments with honesty, using them as opportunities to strengthen our bond. I continued my work on the accessible trails, pouring my heart into the designs that would help others experience the beauty of nature. And as I walked those paths, I often reflected on the journey Sarah and I had taken together. Each step I took was a reminder of our resilience and commitment to growth. Sarah became my biggest supporter, cheering me on as I brought my designs to life. Together, we would hike the trails, celebrating the beauty of our surroundings and the love that had blossomed from the ashes of betrayal. The trails became a symbol of our journey, paths that were accessible, filled with love, and designed to honor both of our journeys. As I sat on a bench overlooking one of the trails, watching others enjoy the beauty of nature, I felt a sense of peace. I had learned that life is full of unexpected twists and turns, but those very moments can lead to the most beautiful destinations. I reflected on what I had learned throughout this experience, about love, forgiveness, and the strength that comes from facing challenges head-on. I realized that while the journey of healing would always be ongoing, having someone by my side made it all the more worthwhile. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the landscape, I smiled at the thought of what lay ahead. Life would continue to throw obstacles our way, but I felt ready to navigate them together. Our love story, once marred by betrayal, had been rewritten into something stronger, more profound, and filled with hope. And in that moment, I knew that we were not only walking forward on those trails, but also creating a beautiful path forward in our lives together, one step at a time.